we were looking for a certain type of person to join our company. And the one major thing that changed in it was that we weren't interested in what you knew, but how you thought. How did you think through a problem? Can you work with others? And I saw that transition. In the beginning, we wanted to get that person that had knowledge of certain things. Business was changing too quickly, and so that knowledge became antiquated in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
But could you adjust to the new, to that unknown? Are we willing to take the risk? And that's always a factor for very successful people, in my opinion.
Jim, welcome.
Thank you, Sam. Good to be here.
As I mentioned before, just very interested in general, the topic here is leadership and your life story as it applies to leaders, leadership, kind of things that you hold to be important, whether we're referring to individuals that other people may know from history or from kind of the news or whatever, or just people that are very personal in your life that made a big impact on you. So tell me about the way you hired people, your process for, okay, so now you've got a certain amount of success rolling and somebody wants to work for you.
Right.
So what you used to put people through to find out if they had what it took to...
Well, we learned early on that a bad hire is really bad for the person and really bad for the company, because you invest a lot of money in someone when you hire them, and you're going to put them through training, and we're going to invest in someone to start producing 1 year, 2 years into the process. So I had a farm system. I had young men and women who had just graduated college that would come to me and I'd say, look, I need you to go work for IBM for 5 years and then give me a call. But while they were doing that, once a year they would call and I'd have lunch with them or breakfast, and I'd see how they were moving along. Sometimes somebody would come from a totally unrelated industry. I hired teachers because of some skill sets that we felt that they had that would fit in well in business. Never sold in their lives, but we would send them somewhere where they could get the training that we couldn't provide and say, hey, go over here and learn this. And then they'd come back and say, okay, now your next step, see if you can get a job over here. And then eventually that farm system paid off. We hardly lost a salesperson once we hired them. I mean, it happened, but very, very rare, because we invested our time and energy in that next wave of people that we wanted to help us grow the company. Mm-hmm. And that was really successful for us.
You started as a salesperson with Comdisco, and then was it VP of Sales and Marketing, or?
Yeah, so that was really interesting. I mentioned before that I started to manage by trying to duplicate myself. I went from the 66th employee, maybe the 10th salesperson in the company, and then our company just grew exponentially. And so I became a branch manager. And then one day I became a manager of 2 divisions of sales forces. And what happened in that process was really, really interesting. I got over the hurdle. Again, we didn't have training programs on this. Not every great salesman makes a great manager, as you know, right? And that was our theory. And we were now at a point where we were bringing in different types of people to help grow our company. We were cookie cutters up to this point. Yeah. But I learned a valuable lesson, not only in managing, but in life, when we merged these 2 companies, 2 divisions, I should say. One day, a group of guys that I had hired, and they were buddies and friends, they came and said, hey, we need to have a beer with you. And I said, sure. So we went out and had a beer, and they sat me down. They said, the one thing that you've taught us all is to listen. I said, oh yeah, that's the key to selling. And and they said, you're not listening. So when I had this opportunity, I just assumed everybody was on board. I just assumed everybody understood exactly what it was that we wanted to accomplish. So I went back and I thought about that. I said, these are guys and they love me. And they're saying, you're not managing this thing right. So I did the best thing I thought I could do. I brought in some expertise. I brought in a consultant, and they went through everything that I was doing. And they did two things that changed everything. First was when somebody came in to speak with me, I would tend to feel I've answered the question, the conversation's over, and I would go somewhere else. The person may be sitting in front of me. So what they did is they made me get up from my chair when someone came in and go sit on my sofa, face to face. And the second thing is they called my desk the ego desk. So I had to leave my ego at the desk. And those two things changed everything. You look at these things and you go, wow, how did this happen? How did I get to this point? And it goes back to the stickball game, and it goes back to the influence your mother and father had, that you allowed yourself to be open to constructive criticism from people who really cared about you and wanted you to be successful. Mm-hmm. And then from there, maybe the first step of truly becoming a manager.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about like all that you had the ability to, contribute to, over time in your career. What's similar and what's different about leadership today versus when you were building ComDisco? There's some things I'm assuming are still in play, right? And then
I think we know a lot more about people today than we did back then. I mean, if you went to the right school, if you had an Ivy League degree, boy, you're going to be set for life. That doesn't ensure that you're going to be a performer, no, right? And so we tended at ComDisco to kind of go away from that. We were looking for the guys and ladies whose father were cops and firemen and sanitation workers and bus drivers and shoemakers, and that's what our makeup. We wanted hungry people. We wanted people who wanted to beat the pants off the guy that had the Ivy League degree, right? Yeah. So that was our goal. In the past, as I recall, it just seems as if there were boxes that people were put in, right? And that once you got command of that box, you were allowed to go into the next box. And today it's just different. I think it's more team play in terms of working with others, because I think there's a real benefit for many different viewpoints to the solution of a problem that you might bring to a client. And that seems to be more prevalent today than it was in the past. The boxes seem to be knocked down. I mean, if you look at an office today, a lot of open space, movable pieces within that.
Right.
And in the past, if you look at that dopey series that was on TV, Mad Men, right? Everybody went in their office, everybody had a bar, everybody was smoking, and everybody had their door closed. That's not the work environment of today.
That's not happening today, yeah.
And things are changing so fast. So, we were looking for a certain type of person to join our company. And the one major thing that changed in it was that we weren't interested in what you knew, but how you thought. How did you think through a problem? Can you work with others? And I saw that transition. In the beginning, we wanted to get that person that had knowledge of certain things. Business was changing too quickly, and so that knowledge became antiquated in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
But could you adjust to the new, to that unknown? Are we willing to take the risk? And that's always a factor for very successful people, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. So it's more about how you're processing whatever challenge is in front of you, as opposed to just your IQ or ability to have, like, I solved this problem before.
Yeah, here's an example, Sam. We were very successful at what we were doing, but the world was changing on us. And so we had to make several changes. We felt that if you had less accounts, you could do more in the few accounts. So, the concept, less is more. We felt that if we could put our two major division sales teams in the same facilities, that we could share information on the same accounts we were calling on. All of that turned out to be true and successful. But That was a really difficult transition. You know, our average salesperson was making $250,000 a year back then, which was pretty good. Now we came along and said, we're going to change this on you. You know, a lot of guys turned around and said, oh, no, you're not. You're going to talk to my wife first because this is working. But we listened and we talked it through, and we got people to hold on to it, and they made more money, and the company grew even at a greater pace at that point.
So you kind of sold the change?
Yeah, it was gradual. It was not easy.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, why would you change something that's working so successfully?
Yeah.
Reason being is that the world we were selling it to had changed so dramatically.
Yeah, and it was probably going to continue to change more.
Even more so.
Yeah. There is undoubtedly a question or two that you would have asked yourself that I didn't ask you.
I was just curious if you wonder why I'm such a better golfer than you.
No, I don't, because
Well,
it
have
has
you
to do
seen
with
your
the fact that you play a lot more.
No, it could be that you've never seen your swing on film. Perhaps if you did that, you would understand what I see.
No, I don't want to be. I shouldn't be doing that. No. Well, anyway.
All right, Chief.
Thank you.